When we are rounding, we're asking what is our number closest to. In this example, we're rounding to 1 decimal place. That means we're going to have 1 digit after the decimal point. And in these examples, we're asking, is our number closest to 5.5, 5.6, or 5.7? The cutoff point will be in the middle, so halfway in between 5.5 and 5.6. So halfway in between 5.5 and 5.6 is 5.55. Halfway in between 5.6 and 5.7 is 5.65. So anything in between 5.55 and 5.65 is closer to 5.6. Let's look at these examples. The first one, 5.62. So where is 5.62 on this number line? So it's in between 5.6 and 5.65. So around there somewhere. So it's closest to 5.6. 5.68. 5.68 is up here. So it's bigger than 5.65. So it's not going to round to 5.6. It's going to round to 5.7. 5.51734 is just above of 5.5. So 5.51 is just above 5.5. So it's less than 5.55. It's less than the halfway point. So it's going to round to 5.5. 5.6492. So 5.64 is just less than 5.65. It's just underneath 5.65. But it is underneath 5.65. So it's going to be 5.6. It's less than 5.65. So it rounds to 5.6. And how about 5.65 exactly? So exactly halfway between 5.6 and 5.7, exactly in the middle, we are going to say it's going to round up. The most common way of rounding it, that's what's usually done. It usually rounds away from 0, so we're going to round it up to 5.7. So even though it's exactly halfway, we're rounding up. So let's look at our rule for rounding. So what we're going to do, when we're rounding to 1 decimal place, so that's 1 number after the decimal point, we're going to look at the next number. So the next number, the next digit, so the second decimal place, and we're going to say, is it 5 or above? If it is 5 or above, like this one and this one, we're going to round it up. So that it's going to go up to 5.7. It's going to go up to 5.7. If the number is less than 5, so a 2, a 1, or a 4, we're going to leave it as it is. So this stayed as 5.6. This one stayed at 5.5. And this one stayed at 5.6. Let's have a look at some examples. So in the first 2 examples here, we're rounding to 1 decimal place. So we want 1 number after the decimal point. So we look at the next one. We look at the second decimal place and we say, is it 5 or above? If it is 5 or above, we round up. So this is 5 or above. 9 is 5 or above. So it's going to round up and it'll become 5.8. 16.345. We want 1 number after the decimal point. We look at the next number and say, is it 5 or above? In this case, it is not. So we're going to leave it as it is. It's going to be 16.3. The next two examples, we're rounding to 2 decimal places. So we want 2 numbers after the decimal point. And then we're going to look at the next one and say, is it 5 or above? So this time it is. So we're going to round it up. So 6.59. How could we round that up? What's 1/100th more than 6.59? It's 6.60. 20.312. We want 2 decimal places. That's 2 digits after the decimal point. 1, 2. We look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No, it's not. So we're going to leave it as it is. So 20.31. And the other 2 examples, we're rounding to 3 decimal places. So we want 3 numbers after the decimal point. So we've got 9.2564. So we want 3 numbers after the decimal point. Then we look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No, it's not. So we're going to leave it as it is. 9.256. And 203.67259. Again, we want 3 numbers after the decimal point. We look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? Yes, it is. So we're going to round up. So that'd be 203.673. Okay, 6 for you to try here. So give these a go. Okay, the first one. We are rounding to 1 decimal place. So we want 1 number after the decimal point. We look at the next one along, and say, is it 5 or above? This one is not, so we're going to leave it as it is. We're going to leave it as 2.7. It's closer to 2.7 than it is to 2.8. Question 2. We want 1 number after the decimal point. So we look at the one after it and say, is it 5 or above? It is, so it rounds up. So that will be 9.7. It's closer to 9.7 than it is to 9.6. Rounding to 2 decimal places. So we want 2 numbers after the decimal point. So we're going to look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? Yes, it is. So we round up. So that will be 5.37. And 8.9746. We want 2 numbers after the decimal point. So we look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No. So we leave it as it is, 8.97. And rounding to 3 decimal places. So we want 3 numbers after the decimal point. Then look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No. So leave it as it is. And the last one. Again, we want 3 numbers after the decimal point. We look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? Yes. So we round up. 2.673. Now we are rounding to 1 significant figure. The first significant figure is the first non-zero number. So in this first example, we're rounding to hundreds. The first non-zero number is this 5 here, which is worth 500. So we look at the next digit and say, is it 5 or above? This is not. So we're going to leave it as it is. So it's going to stay as 500. In the second example, the first non-zero number is this 6, which is worth 6,000. We look at the number after it, the digit after it. Is it 5 or above? This time it is. So it's going to round up. So 6,000 is going to round up to 7,000. It's closer to 7,000 than it is to 6,000. Question 3. The first non-zero number is the 6. So we look at the digit after it. Is it 5 or above? Yes, it is. So round up. So we've got 6 tenths. We're rounding up. It's going to be 7 tenths. And question 4. The first non-zero number is the 7. So we look at the one after it, which is a 2. So it's not 5 or above. So we leave it as it is. 0.07. Okay, give these ones a go. 4 for you to try. Okay, so the first significant figure is the first non-zero number. So here we've got an 8. The one after it is a 6. So it is 5 or above, so it rounds up. So we had 8,000, we're rounding up, and it's now 9,000. Question 2. The first non-zero number is the 200. The one after it's a 1, so it's less than 5, so it stays as 200. We leave it as it is. Question 3. The first non-zero number is the 7 tenths, the 0.7. The one after it is a 9, so it is 5 or above, so it rounds up, and that becomes 0.8. And question 4, the first non-zero number is the 4 thousandths. One after it is a 3, so it's not 5 or above, so it stays as it is, so it's 0.004. Okay, now we're looking at 2 significant figures and 3 significant figures. So we still start counting at the first non-zero number. So in the first example, we're starting counting at the 4. The second significant figure is the 3. So we look at the next one and say, is it 5 or above? It's not, so we leave it as it is. So we've got 4,300. Question 2. The first non-zero number is the 1. So that's the first significant figure. The second significant figure is the one after it. So we are now looking at the next digit, saying, is it 5 or above? It is. So we round up. So it becomes 0.14. And the third one, we want 2 significant figures. The first significant figure is the 4. The second one is the 8 tenths. So we look at the next digit. Is it 5 or above? It is. So round up. 4.9. And now we're looking at 3 significant figures. So again, the first significant figure is the first non-zero number. So we've got 0.0, so 2 zeros. The first significant figure is the 9. The second one is the 0. The third one is the 4. So we're looking at the next digit and saying, is it 5 or above? It is 5 or above, so round up. So we have 0.0905. And question 2, the first non-zero number is the first one, so that's the 2. The second one is the 0. The third one is the 3. So we look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No, it's not. So leave it as it is, 20.3. And question 3, 1, 2, 3. The next number, is it 5 or above? It is not, so leave it as it is. So it's 61,200. Okay, some for you to try, so give these ones a go. Question 1, round to two significant figures. So we start counting at the first non-zero number. So we've got the 5 and the 0. There are two significant figures. So we look at the next one down. Is it 5 or above? Yes, it is. So round up. So that gives us 51,000. Question 2. We don't count the first two zeros. We start counting at the first non-zero number. So 1, 2. And we look at the next one down. Is it 5 or above? Yes. So round up. 0.063. And question 3. We want two significant figures. 1, 2. It's not 5 or above, so leave it as 7.4. And three significant figures. So count from the first non-zero number. 1, 2, 3. Look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No. So leave it as it is. 1, 2, 3. Look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No. So leave it as it is. And 1, 2, 3. The next one is 5 or above. So round it up. So 80,600. Okay, some questions to finish up. Give these a go. Question 1. Round to one decimal place. That means we want one number after the decimal point. For the first one, we've got 6.483. So count one number after the decimal point and look at the one after it. If it's 5 or above, round up. So we've got an 8, so we're rounding up. So 6.4 becomes 6.5. It's closer to 6.5 than it is to 6.4. The second one, again, count one number after the decimal point. Look at the one after it. If it's 5 or above, round up. If it's not, leave it as it is. So we're going to leave it as it is, and it's 19.6. So it's closer to 19.6 than it is to 19.7. Question 2, the same thing, but with two decimal places. So count 2 after the decimal point, and look at the next one. If it's 5 or above, round up. So we've got 2.154. So 4 isn't 5 or above. So leave it as it is, 2.15. It's closer to 2.15 than it is to 2.16. And the second one of these, 72.9258. Count 2 after the decimal point, and look at the next one. It is 5 or above, so round up. So that will give us 72.93. It's closer to 72.93 than it is to 72.92. Rounding to one significant figure means start counting at the first non-zero number. So here we've got 461. So we're counting, or the 400 is the first non-zero number. So look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? Yes. So round it up to 500. So it's closer to 500 than 400. And the second one of these, 6,257. The first non-zero number is the 6,000. So look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? No, it's not. So it stays as 6,000. And finally, two significant figures. So we start counting at the first non-zero number. So 1, 2. We look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? Yes. So 15,965. 9 is 5 or above, so round up. So 15,000 is going to go to 16,000. Again, it's closer to 16,000 than it is to 15,000. And the last one, 0.0637. So we start counting at the first non-zero number. So it's a 6, and then the 3. We look at the next one. Is it 5 or above? Yes. So round up. And that will be 0.064. So it's closer to 0.064 than it is to 0.063.